Far behind the front lines, Russian generals gathered for what they called a victory briefing, a meeting meant to plan the next stage of their offensive. They believed Ukraine's eyes couldn't see that far, that their headquarters was deep enough and safe enough. But in a war where satellites, drones, and signals never sleep, there's no such thing as invisible anymore. Ukraine was listening, watching, and waiting, and when the time came, they didn't miss.
Always have those eyes up in the air.
What you're about to hear isn't fiction or propaganda. It's a reconstruction of real, verified HIMARS strikes that have changed the course of this war. A story told through intelligence leaks, satellite images, drone footage, and battlefield evidence that shows how Ukraine has turned precision into power. When the war began, Russia's playbook was simple: overwhelm, occupy, and declare victory. But as their convoys rolled and their artillery thundered, Ukraine learned, adapted, and struck back with precision rather than volume. The weapon that symbolized that shift wasn't a tank or a plane. It was a six-wheeled launcher called HIMARS, the High Mobility Artillery Rocket System. The Americans designed it to move fast, hit hard, and vanish before the enemy could even respond. Each HIMARS launcher carries a pod of guided rockets capable of hitting a target more than 70 kilometers away. And they don't just hit the area, they hit the coordinates. If the map grid is off by even a few meters, the rocket will still find it. This level of accuracy meant Ukraine could finally go after what matters most: command posts, ammo depots, and the high-ranking officers directing the invasion. From the summer of 2022 onward, HIMARS became a nightmare for Russian command structures. Verified by multiple satellite images and Western intelligence briefings, dozens of strikes targeted field headquarters, supply nodes, and control centers. Russian logistics officers began spacing their ammo dumps further apart, running operations at night and hiding in civilian buildings. But Ukraine's intelligence network, built from human sources, drones, and intercepted communications, kept improving. By late 2023, the pattern was clear. Russian commanders who gathered too long in one place often didn't survive the night. One of the earliest documented examples came in the Zaporizhzhia region. Satellite imagery, confirmed by Kiev's Defense Intelligence Directorate, showed two massive HIMARS impacts destroying a mobile headquarters used by Russian forces near Tokmak. Ukrainian drones filmed the aftermath: burning vehicles, destroyed communication trailers, and a cratered command tent. The strike reportedly killed over a dozen Russian officers, including a brigade deputy commander. Even Russian-aligned Telegram channels reluctantly confirmed the loss. It was a message written in smoke. No meeting is secret anymore. Through 2024, that message became a doctrine. Ukraine learned how to combine its special forces, signals intelligence, and drone reconnaissance into one coordinated process. First, drones or informants spotted unusual convoy activity: a collection of command vehicles, communications vans, and high-value targets moving together. Next, signal intercept teams monitored encrypted traffic, noting spikes in radio chatter that often preceded a meeting. Then the intelligence units coordinated with HIMARS batteries. Once the generals were inside, the order came: fire. The timing had to be perfect. If you launch too early, they scatter. Too late, and the convoy leaves. But in a handful of documented cases, Ukraine got it exactly right. In February 2024, one of those strikes hit elements of Russia's 155th Guards Naval Infantry Brigade. Independent sources, including Western defense analysts and local Russian reports, confirmed that HIMARS rockets landed directly on a temporary command area, killing 19 soldiers and injuring dozens more. Among the dead were senior officers. Even Russian media could not deny it. Obituaries began to appear days later. The brigade commander was hospitalized and operations in the sector temporarily halted. Ukraine never announced that strike officially, but they didn't have to. Satellite evidence and intercepted radio calls told the story. HIMARS had reached yet another high-value node. As the months went on, reports of similar precision hits appeared across occupied territories: Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk, Kherson. In December 2024, Ukrainian intelligence released footage of a strike near the village of Nestoryanka.
Знаходимося на місці обстрілу в Яровій. Ось це наслідки прильоту. Тут було багато людей, дуже багато крові, дуже багато.
The drone camera captured two HIMARS rockets hitting a cluster of vehicles parked beside a tented command post. The first impact created a shockwave. The second detonated munitions inside the vehicles. The Defense Intelligence Directorate later stated that the strike eliminated the command group of a Russian motorized rifle brigade. While exact casualty numbers were not released, analysts matched satellite imagery and open-source videos, confirming that at least 5 command trucks and communication systems were destroyed. This was not random shelling. It was data-driven warfare that precise, surgical, and psychological. In March 2025, Ukraine extended this precision beyond the front line. A HIMARS strike destroyed 4 Russian helicopters at the Belgorod airfield, deep inside Russian territory. Using the M30A2 variant of the GMLRS rocket, Ukrainian forces coordinated the attack with intelligence from special operations teams. 2 Ka-52 Alligator attack helicopters and 2 Mi-8 transports were obliterated. The significance was enormous. HIMARS had proven it could strike inside Russia itself, targeting critical command and logistics aviation nodes. It was a message to Moscow that no distance guaranteed safety anymore. That same month, an intercepted Russian communication revealed panic among officers in the southern command sector. A voice identified as a battalion chief complained, "They know our movements before we arrive. Every time we set up HQ, they hit it in hours." Western analysts believe this was no exaggeration. The pattern of strikes lined up with intercepted GPS spoofing attempts and increased Russian use of mobile command posts rather than static buildings, a desperate adaptation to survive under constant HIMARS threat. Then came the strike in Selidov, Donetsk region. In mid-2025, Ukrainian sources claimed that a HIMARS salvo destroyed a Russian military headquarters, killing multiple officers. While the details remain partially unverified, satellite images confirmed a large structure reduced to rubble within the reported timeframe. Open-source geolocation showed the coordinates matching an administrative compound used by occupation forces. Russian military bloggers acknowledged the hit, lamenting the loss of senior staff. Even without official statements, the circumstantial evidence told the truth. Another Russian headquarters had been flattened. Over time, these precise high-impact strikes reshaped Russian command behavior. Generals stopped visiting forward bases. Briefings were conducted remotely. Convoys traveled at night with electronic jammers running. But those measures came at a cost. Delayed decisions, slower coordination, and growing mistrust among units. A military that once prided itself on centralized control was forced into fragmentation. Every strike didn't just kill officers, it killed efficiency, morale, and the illusion of safety. Western observers noticed. The Pentagon described HIMARS as the system that changed the balance in Ukraine's favor. The United Kingdom's defense intelligence noted that by late 2024, Russian leadership casualties were higher than in any comparable period since the start of the invasion. Each loss of a colonel or general meant disrupted operations across entire sectors. For Ukraine, these hits weren't just tactical, they were symbolic. Proof that with precision you could outthink and outfight a larger enemy. But striking a command post isn't as simple as coordinates and launch buttons. It requires what the military calls kill chain integrity, the uninterrupted flow of information from intelligence collection to target validation to firing authorization. In Ukraine's case, that meant combining human agents in occupied territory, satellite data from Western partners, and real-time drone feeds. Every HIMARS hit that destroyed a command post represented dozens of people, machines and signals working in perfect sync. Take, for example, the strike near Tokmak mentioned earlier. Drone footage showed a command group arriving in SUVs, setting up antennas and unloading documents. For nearly 2 hours, Ukraine watched, but didn't fire. Analysts believe they were confirming the presence of a high-value officer. Only when all vehicles had parked and personnel gathered did the rockets launch. The first missile hit the exact center of the formation. The second detonated seconds later, engulfing the site in a fireball visible from kilometers away. That restraint, waiting for confirmation, reflects a level of discipline rarely seen in wartime artillery. Each verified incident reinforced a new reality. The battlefield is transparent. Drones orbit overhead. Satellites refresh imagery every few hours. Radio intercepts reveal patterns. Even soldiers' smartphones betray them. The secret meeting that once felt secure now might be live-streamed to an enemy targeting screen. So when the world hears the phrase Ukraine waited, it's not metaphorical. They literally wait for confirmation, for intelligence fusion, for the exact second when the enemy is gathered and exposed. Then HIMARS speaks and a command structure disappears. That precision comes at a price. HIMARS munitions are expensive, and Ukraine receives limited stock from the US every month. Each rocket must count. That scarcity drives meticulous planning. Every target must justify the cost in both ammunition and political risk. This is why so many HIMARS strikes hit not random positions, but infrastructure that controls the flow of the war itself. Even Russia's own reports sometimes betray the scale of these losses. In intercepted telegrams and local obituaries, officers described as killed during combat operations often trace back to known HIMARS strike zones. By 2025, Western intelligence assessed that over 300 Russian officers of field-grade rank or higher had been killed in precision strikes, many of them by HIMARS, or coordinated drone artillery attacks. Each of those deaths rippled through the chain of command. Orders delayed, counterattacks postponed, logistics halted, and morale fractured. Behind every successful hit lies a modern partnership between man and machine. Ukrainian special forces deploy reconnaissance drones that feed coordinates to an intelligence network connected through Starlink terminals. Analysts compare this with satellite radar imagery. Within minutes, a target package is sent to artillery units. The HIMARS crew, often operating from camouflaged forest positions, inputs the coordinates, confirms via encrypted link, and launches. Within 45 seconds, the rockets are airborne, guided by GPS and inertial navigation systems, reaching supersonic speeds. The entire process, from detection to detonation, can occur in under 15 minutes. Russian officers learned this the hard way. In intercepted communications analyzed by independent monitors, one commander shouted, "Don't cluster vehicles. They target gatherings." The fear is justified. In modern warfare, gatherings mean graves. Ukraine's methodical use of HIMARS has drawn praise and envy worldwide. The system's reputation transformed from a tactical asset into a strategic symbol. Western militaries study Ukraine's coordination methods, noting how a smaller nation used intelligence and precision to offset numerical disadvantage. By the middle of 2025, reports of fresh command post strikes became routine. Each time the story repeated, Ukraine detected, waited, and destroyed. But the psychological impact went further than the physical destruction. Russian troops began circulating jokes calling HIMARS the god of punctuality, because it always arrived exactly when officers met. Even so, not every claim held up. Propaganda from both sides sometimes inflated results, and independent analysts spent months verifying coordinates. Still, enough evidence, from satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and official death notices, confirmed the pattern beyond a doubt. HIMARS was systematically dismantling Russian command resilience. For soldiers on the ground, these strikes meant chaos. Orders stopped coming. Units acted independently or froze altogether. Supply lines faltered because no one dared centralize logistics. Russian artillery, once relentless, sometimes fell silent for days after headquarters hits as they tried to re-establish communications. That pause gave Ukrainian forces breathing room to advance, reposition, or rebuild defenses. Every HIMARS launch sent not just shrapnel, but a message that information and timing were now more lethal than mass firepower. And for Ukraine, each successful strike served as both revenge and warning. Revenge for cities destroyed, and warning that the old methods of war were over. Commanders could no longer plan from comfort. Meetings became risks, leadership became liability. In public briefings, Ukraine's defense officials rarely boasted, but when pressed, one officer remarked, "We don't announce everything we destroy." The enemy knows that understated confidence speaks louder than any headline. By late 2025, analysts began calling HIMARS the invisible sniper of the war, a weapon that never shows its face but changes everything. Russia responded by developing countermeasures: decoy HQs, dummy radio chatter, and fake vehicle clusters to mislead sensors. Some worked, many didn't. Ukraine's intelligence network learned to spot patterns, distinguish decoys from real targets, and refine its kill chain even further. Every cycle of adaptation drove the conflict into the digital realm, a war of data, timing, and nerve. In this war, the secret meeting that Ukraine waited for is less about one location and more about an ongoing mindset. Catching the enemy at its most confident moment. When historians look back, they'll see a pattern written in precision fire. They'll note how a smaller nation redefined modern warfare, not by brute strength, but by outthinking its enemy. And somewhere in the pages of that history, there will be a photograph, a plume of smoke rising from a destroyed command post, the timestamp marking the exact minute a meeting turned into a crater. That is what happens when intelligence meets precision, when patience meets timing, when Ukraine waits and HIMARS flattens the command HQ.